Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herald here on Badlands Media. I am your host, Jon Herold, and I hope you all are having a wonderful Thursday. Plenty to discuss today. We will get right to it. I'm just going to check in on the chat, see how you guys are doing over here. Got the regulars in there. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. Rebel Nader, pray for whoever hit the thumbs down. Their heart is full of hate. And somebody says, John says he usually does that. I'm joking. I don't actually hit the thumbs down on my own videos to keep myself humble. That's a joke. We do have a dedicated group of haters that come onto every stream pretty much that Badlands does and preemptively hits the thumbs down. So yeah, they are full hate. Kind of some sad news before we get into everything. There's a statement put out by this Women Fighting for America statement from Christine Hutcherson, founder of Women Fighting for America. It is with a heavy heart that I share the passing of Boone Cutler, a courageous, loving man of God and a true warrior for freedom in this nation. My heart and prayers go out to his family and friends during this time of loss. I had the privilege and honor of serving alongside Boone in North Carolina after the floods and with him on the Reawakened America tour. I also had the opportunity to interview him on my podcast, On the Front Lines. America has lost a friend. Boone's legacy of faith, service, and patriotism will live on in the many lives he touched. He stood boldly for truth and freedom, and his voice will continue to inspire us to fight for the soul of this nation. And that's another pretty devastating loss for the truther community. He's the one who is writing the 5G warfare books with General Flynn. I actually did an interview with him once. It was the first interview they did about their 5G warfare book. It was really cool. But I know he was good friends with CanCon and Alpha and a lot of other people in the movement. It has been confirmed, though. I did text Alpha. So yeah, very sad. I believe it was a heart attack, but I don't have that fully confirmed. But that seems to be the consensus here. So prayers to Boone, prayers to his family, prayers to the community too. It's just another bummer. But yes, Boone Cutler has passed away. Anyway, let's go through the sponsors of today's show real quick, and then we'll get into the headlines and the news. I got a few things I'm going to say that probably aren't going to hit well with everybody, but it's kind of my theme the last couple of weeks, so is what it is. But first up, are you guys ready to stack some sats? River's got your back because they're Bitcoin only, built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. With River, you get zero fee recurring buys, set it and forget it every hour, day, week, month, whatever it is, to grow your Bitcoin effortlessly. They just raised the rate on their Bitcoin interest on cash to 3.8% because the Fed lowered their rate. We'll talk about that story today. Pretty much anything you need to grow your Bitcoin portfolio, you can do it with River. That's who I use for Badlands. We started that Bitcoin strategic reserve, or whatever G-Money calls it, here a couple months ago, and that's what we're using. So they're a great partner. They're awesome company, great customer support. I'd encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. Badlandsmedia.tv/River. Move your cash to River and earn real returns paid in Bitcoin. The future starts today. That's Badlandsmedia.tv/River. And also, guys, if you're going to get Bitcoin, you're going to want to probably get it into a cold storage wallet. It's not financial advice, but if you're going to do that, use our affiliate code with Trezor, Badlandsmedia.tv/Trezor, Trezor. And they have some of the best cold storage options available. And then one more sponsor real quick. I'm going to do our soft disclosure ad right now, and that way we can just cruise through the rest of the stuff today. So let's take a listen.
Deodorant should do more than cover you up. It should protect you all day long.
Dude, the deodorant stick is legit. I like the mint one.
And, you go work out and you kind of get like, you get funky if you work out. Dude, like at the end of my workout, like I'm sweating, shirt got all those sweat. Like I'm like, dude, I still smell good. Like I absolutely love it. If you guys haven't tried it, try it.
That's the difference with Soft Disclosure. No aluminum, no chemicals, just clean, natural ingredients that fight odor and keep you fresh through every workout, every meeting, every moment.
I've always struggled with the you can't use aluminum deodorant because you're going to die if you use it kind of thing, because all of the non-aluminum deodorant products suck pretty much. Yeah. This is different. This is all day. You're all day good, and you're not putting any of that disgusting chemicals right near your lymph nodes.
Soft Disclosure deodorant, real protection, real freshness, built on truth. Available in mint and lemon grapefruit. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off.
Soft disclosure. All right, guys. No update on the Doge website. There's also no update as of now on the presidential website. I'm assuming we'll get a flurry of these once Trump gets back stateside. He's over in Europe at the moment. But yeah, we'll maybe get to a couple clips of some of the things he said. He's having a press conference with Keir Starmer this morning or today. So we'll get around to that. Probably the biggest news of the last 24 hours or so. And some of the stuff, guys, we talked about on last night's Power Hour. So I'm not going to go super in-depth on this show. If you want a more in-depth discussion about some of these topics, I'd encourage you to go watch last night's Power Hour. One of them, this isn't the biggest news, but this is news, is that Jimmy Kimmel's show got canceled. Donald Trump posted here, great news for America. The ratings challenge Jimmy Kimmel show is canceled. Congrats to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers on fake news NBC. The ratings are also horrible. Do it NBC, President Donald J. Trump. He's basically gone through and essentially claimed credit for getting a whole bunch of these late night talk show hosts fired. I think it's hilarious. I don't think he had any, I don't know. I don't think he was the reason they got fired. They're saying it was the Charlie Kirk thing. I think that was just an excuse. I think this is a long time coming. I think there's probably more to it. I personally don't even care. I never watched Jimmy Kimmel. I didn't really ever find him that funny. I didn't like the guy. Obviously, he was a regime asset. He pushed a whole bunch of lies. I think it's a net positive. I don't know. I don't see a downside, but I also don't care. Like, I'm not emotionally attached to Jimmy Kimmel or what he was doing to the point where you're going to get a reaction out of me over Jimmy Kimmel being fired. I also don't care enough to post about it a whole bunch on social media like everybody is, because I don't care about the clickbait stuff. So yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is, but also I'm more curious to see, one, what is he going to say when he inevitably does his podcast or whatever he's going to do after this, and if he's going to give any inside dirt, and if he's going to change his messaging. Doubt it. Two is, who are they going to replace him with? Because if they do, and they put somebody else in there in the late night slot, it's probably going to come off as more, moderate or whatever. But at the end of the day, unless they get ownership changes at some of these places, they're still pushing the regime narratives, especially when it matters most. So I'm just curious to see who they end up putting in there. But then the big news, Donald Trump. I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Again, we talked about this pretty in depth last night, and it is very notable because this is something that's been a long time coming. Okay. I went back and looked on Trump's Truth Social in-depth conversation last night. Just a reminder, this is going to be more service level. The first time Trump ever mentioned that they were even considering declaring Antifa a terrorist organization was back in July of 2019. Consideration is being given to declaring Antifa the gutless radical left whack jobs who go around hitting only non-fighters, people over the heads with baseball bats, a major organization of terror, along with MS-13 and others, would make it easier for the police to do their job. That was the first time. He talked about them many times over the years, and then the first time he actually said they were going to be designating them a terrorist organization was on May 31st. The United States of America will be designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. Lots more mentions. And then fast forward to January 5th of 2021, when Trump put out that memo that he was ordering the DOJ to look into whether or not Antifa was a terrorist organization. That same day, he actually put out a tweet where he declared them a terrorist organization. So if you take Trump's Twitter posts as like a presidential messaging, right? Like in court, like you can use what Trump posts on social media. Like he can just declare something on social media and that be the thing. He declared them a terrorist organization on January 5th. Antifa is a terrorist organization. Stay out of Washington. Law enforcement is watching you very closely. Now, I more so think he was just kind of signaling that he knew a false flag was coming the next day on January 6th, but still notable. But yeah, he says he's going to be declaring them a terrorist organization. A lot of people are like, oh, see, the trans shooting, Charlie Kirk situation, this is why he did it. Trump has been hinting at this for a long time. He could just be kind of riding the narrative wave as a reason to do it. But there's also a story that came out of, it was posted by Zero Hedge. There's an entire report on it. Let me see here. And this is on the heels of Trump last week talking about George Soros. New report reveals Soros Open Society funneled $80 million to pro-terror groups. Now, did Trump know this is coming out? Probably. I'm sure they got this to somebody in the administration before they published it. But the Capital Research Center, a think tank tracking foundations, charities, and other nonprofits, has revealed OSF, Open Societies Foundation, now run by George's ultra-leftist radical son, Alexander, has funneled over $80 million to groups linked to terrorism or extremist violence. It was this Ryan Morrow who published the report. He stated over $80 million into groups. The Sunrise Movement, which endorsed the Antifa-linked Stop City campaign, or Stop Cop City. I don't know. The timing of this is just very notable. And the thing I'm most excited about, and again, we talked about it last night, if you want my full thoughts, but the difference between some of these executive orders that we've talked about over the years and this one, whichever one Trump is going to be doing here soon, is this terrorism angle. 13818, 13848, all these other old executive orders, they have some teeth, but when it comes to the financial stuff, you know, a lot of people like to think that 13848 can seize the assets of any entity that's involved in election theft, or 13818 seize the assets of anybody involved with human trafficking or corruption. It's not true. Those executive orders, as I've said repeatedly over the years, they don't do that. They can freeze the assets or block the assets from participating within, you know, the American financial ecosystem, but they can't actually seize the assets. And I've said, if there is something, some mechanism out there that allows the Trump administration or whoever to actually seize assets of these people that have been, you know, within the deep state for however long, it's not within these executive orders. There's got to be something else. And we've speculated what that might be. Is it some sort of wartime declaration? I don't know. But once you get the terrorism rider onto like a group like Antifa, they can seize those assets now. Like that is something that's in our, it's like United States Code 18, Section 961 or something. I don't know exactly. I could look it up, but again, talked about it last night. There is language in there that people who support, whether it's financial or materially or whatever it is, if they're within the United States, those assets can be seized. Now, I haven't read through the whole section of that code yet. I don't know if they need to like knowingly participate and know exactly what their money is going to for it to be possible for that to be seized. But I don't know. I don't recall you saying that. Mom of two? You don't recall me saying what? I've many times said that if you're talking about the seizing thing, I've many times said that there's a common misconception around that. And this goes back to, it's actually the whole reason, I guess I don't know if I want to get into it, but back in the day when Derek Johnson first came on the scene, he was talking about this, like 13848 and how it seized assets. And when I first like heard of him and posted a question to him in response on True Social, something he posted, I was like, Where in that executive order does it actually say freeze? Because it doesn't, or seize, I mean, because it doesn't. It only says freeze. And that's when he like lashed out at me and got extremely verbally violent and all those things and blocked me, and haven't engaged with him since. And I actually think I think it was Alpha who did an interview with him not long after that and kind of asked the same question. And yeah, those assets don't say seize. It's a common misconception. So, but this does. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm excited to see the actual wording in the executive order that he puts forth, because that will shed further light. Maybe they don't do the Caesar part of it. I don't know, or maybe it's just caked in. But I know the terrorism rider on there is a biggie. And if you can connect it to George Soros, imagine if they can connect it to some of these like big tech groups, like the Googles or even the social media companies, maybe politicians. Can they tie it to election fraud? Because when Antifa was at its height in terms of activity, it was during the 2020, right? Summer of 2020, which was the lead up to them stealing the election. The Summer Love, George Floyd riots. So if they can tie it to that would be pretty incredible. But we'll see. Another big, this is the part here coming from Turning Point USA. This is the part where you guys may not like what I'm about to say on this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I don't care. The Turning Point board has unanimously elected Erica Kirk as the new CEO and chair of the board. In prior discussions, Charlie expressed to multiple executives that this is what he wanted in the event of his death. They have a whole announcement here. In Ecclesiastes, King Solomon wrote that mankind is to be tested by God. Today we are facing such a test, yet we also know that God has prepared us with everything we need to overcome this ordeal. It was the honor of our lives to serve as board members at Charlie's side. Charlie prepared all of us for a moment like this one. He worked tirelessly to ensure Turning Point USA was built to survive even the greatest tests. And now it is our great pride to announce Erica Kirk as the new CEO and chair of the board for Turning Point USA. All of us at Turning Point USA have a special role in carrying Charlie Kirk's mantle and completing his vision of bringing us all closer to our Lord and fostering a prosperous country for generations to come. I don't know why I can't read today. As Charlie always said, we have a country to save. We will not surrender or kneel before evil. We will carry on. The attempt to destroy Charlie's work will become our chance to make it more powerful and enduring than ever before. May God bless Erica, the Kirk family, and the entire team at Turning Point USA. Very truly yours. And then they have the board there. So what I'm going to say that you guys aren't going to like, and let me read one more thing here quick. And maybe not all of you guys, but some people aren't going to like this. Tyler Bauer, and I think he's very high up at TPUSA. I don't know exactly what his role even is. I don't think he's on the board, but very much involved. This was what Charlie hoped for and wanted, and he said so numerous times. Erica is one with Charlie, and Charlie is one with Erica. We will put all force of Charlie's spiritual, intellectual, and activist capital into supporting her in every way possible. God bless Miss Erica Kirk. And now I do wish her the best of luck. Like I disagree with the election aspect of TPUSA, and I haven't done any research into TPUSA and their funding mechanisms or anything like that. But, I don't want them to fail. I think it's a good thing that they are spreading the message of Christ. That's what Charlie was doing, and getting people involved with like just politically, maybe not election stuff. That's what I don't like, but politically getting engaged, that's a good thing, especially the youth. Now, on Saturday, me and Chris talked about this and how when she came out like a day or two after Charlie had passed away, and I couldn't believe she was doing it in the first place. And it started out as like, sympathizing with her grieving widow, and she obviously is that. She's probably in some sort of shock and will be for a long time. But then her message shifted to like a sales pitch. And I was like, that's where they kind of lost me a little bit. Like it went from, this is genuine. She maybe did write this. And then it became obvious that it was very scripted and she was probably advised to do this. And my perception on that changed. And then the video of her by the casket, I thought was like, not for me either. And I said at the time, and I wasn't the one who coined this phrase. I don't even remember who said it first. And there's somebody in our Badlands chat, one of the hosts, was like, it feels like trauma farming, right? And then now this announcement comes out. And they're all saying like, yeah, this has been the plan all along. If Charlie passed away, that Erica was going to be the one to take over. And so if that's the case, and all these people knew it, then the sales pitch statement, and it was a very successful sales pitch statement. I mean, they got a ton of people to sign up for TPUSA, like a ton of new chapters, which is great for them. But the fact that they already knew that Erica was going to be the one doing this, like going to be the CEO after the fact, her getting up there so shortly after with the sales pitch, means they were intentionally trying to capitalize on the trauma with a scripted thing, knowing full well that Erica would be the CEO in the aftermath. And that's the part that just, it didn't sit well with me right away. It felt off. And now this just makes it feel a little more off. Now, again, I know some people will find what I'm saying here insensitive. I'm just explaining to you how I feel, right? This is how I'm looking at it. And it gives me an icky feeling. And I could be totally wrong on my perception of this. It all could be genuine from the heart, like all these things, the best intentions, whatever. But then you couple it with Joyce Marg, you think she doesn't have a mind of her own? If any of your loved ones, like I'm trying to think not just like significant others or spouses, but kid, parent, immediate family passed away in such a traumatic fashion. I can't even imagine, but maybe just passing away at all, like unexpectedly, let's say. Do you think like I couldn't get up and write something and then even present it on TV to hundreds of thousands of millions of people? I'm just giving you my perspective on this. Like the scripted nature of that and how she pulled it off, and then the sales pitch aspect, along with the fundraising text going out. That's just the stuff that it feels icky. Okay. And I've said it before. I'm not gonna back down from it. She's getting advice from people in her inner circle. I don't know what advice it is. I'd probably advise her to respond differently, but it is what it is. And so she is going to be taking over as CEO. Wish her luck. We'll see what comes of it. Why shouldn't they capitalize on the trauma? I mean, something good needs to come of it. Yeah. I understand there's so many people online that are trying to capitalize on the trauma, and not just like at TPUSA, but in the conning, Twitter sphere, everything. Everybody's got their own little agenda that they're running with. And some people are trying to say the most socially acceptable things possible. Some people are trying to be the most anti-socially acceptable things possible. Some people are just trying to like figure out what the hell is going on. That's where I like to think I'm trying to operate, and I'm going to be wrong a lot. It happens, but at least I'm trying to stay true to my principles and as close to the truth as I can find it or see it. But yeah, obviously people are going to capitalize on it. I just think there's a way to go about it where you aren't intentionally trying to capitalize on people who are going through trauma. Like, I don't personally think that's a moral thing to do. And and I'm not even putting this on Erica herself. Okay, I'm not saying accusing Erica of this. I'm just saying TPUSA in general. And from a business standpoint, they're right for doing it because the business itself is doing really, really well right now in the aftermath of this. That doesn't mean it's a moral thing to do. Taking advantage of people who have suffered any sort of trauma is not a good thing to do. It's not moral, in my opinion. And I'm not the final judge of what's moral or what's not. People will have to, stand before their maker and account for their sins, whatever. I'm just giving you my opinion on it. And if you agree or not, it is what it is. And I know a lot of people see it differently than I do. But I am not afraid to say it like I see it. So any other comments, guys? Maggie Bundy, is she trying to stop Ben Shapiro from getting donor class from hostile takeover? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Ben Shapiro is going to fit in here. I really don't. It's, what, when I look at that, when I look at Con Inc., like Con Inc. has its own controlled opposition dynamic on the other side, like that are constantly going after each other. But then within Con Inc. itself, there's this their own little controlled opposition dynamic where they represent two different sides of the conic narratives and they go after each other. And that's one of the most interesting things that I think I've seen is all these people that have, you know, associated themselves with Charlie Kirk and called themselves Charlie Kirk's friend. And maybe they actually were Charlie Kirk's friends. It's fine. But they've almost like divided themselves into two different sections or groups, and they're going after each other, discussing what Charlie Kirk really meant by what he said about certain countries and different things. And like some people are showing clips and some people are showing text messages and some people are like saying, this is what his pastor said. You know, his pastor said that Charlie Kirk said this, and other people are like, well, I spoke to Charlie too, and that's not what Charlie said. And there's just like this huge he said, she said thing going on about Charlie. And that's like also, I think, pretty immoral because they're all trying to capitalize on this situation for their own reasons. And however it all plays out, I have no idea. I don't know if at the end of the day, they're all going to come together and unite to take out the, you know, get all the trans fired or whatever. I don't know what their ultimate end game is, but I do know it involves keeping us in this forever little cycle of never actually advancing forward with things in this country and constantly being held up in these cultural, ridiculous debates. And this is kind of the point that we're trying to get across is like when you see these mass trauma events happen and you see the psyops unfolding surrounding it, the event itself, like figuring out whether it was real or not, or who did it or not, you know, and I don't go as far as some people do. And maybe I'm wrong to do it that way, because if you're actually doing the first principles approach, like Chris Paul says, and I think he's right about it, is you need to even question whether or not it's real. And so that's even a hurdle for me. Sometimes I struggle getting over, especially with stuff like this, like huge mass trauma events where you see on the TV that people, like his neck exploded essentially, right? And all that blood came out and he passed away. It'd be a hard pill for me to swallow to say like, yeah, that itself wasn't real. I can't go there. But that is the first principles approach, is even questioning anything from the TV, right? And I don't remember where I was going with this. Dang it. That was about to be a really good point. Anyway, I'm trying to stick to the first principles approach with all of this. And that's where, you know, we kind of see through the BS. When you take the first principles approach with anything, you're really able to start to recognize where people are trying to guide you in the off ramps of it and the offshoots from it. And we're seeing a lot of different off ramps right here, and none of them are technically moving forward. They're more like roundabouts where we just turn right back around. And that's why when you focus on what Trump is doing, a lot of the stuff Trump is doing, he's not getting in the mud with this. He's really not. He's capitalizing and drafting off some things it kind of organically, stuff he already wanted to do. Think of the Antifa announcement. That was something he was going to do already anyway. And he'd been talking about doing it, but like multiple times for years. There was a 2-year span within his administration, 2019 and 2020, and then again in 2021. What I say, July of 2019 was the first time. So about a year and a half, he had been discussing naming Antifa as a terrorist organization. He gets into office again. He could have done it day one. He didn't. He waited. Maybe he was waiting for a reason to do it. And this was the reason. We'll see what comes of the investigation, who's really involved. But yeah, guys, you can't be afraid to say the things that people don't like hearing. It is what it is. Bravest in the chat, the way of thinking has changed my life. That way changed. Yeah, mine too. And like I feel like I've always approached things that way. Like I want to see the facts. I don't like to speculate. But even that is different from the actual first principles approach, and it's something that I do need to work on, because I'm not nearly as good at it, or as consistent using it as somebody like a Chris Paul. Like I'm still stuck in my own confirmation bias over many things, and I can acknowledge that. But when I am stuck on something with my own confirmation bias, and somebody tries to like give me a counterpoint, and I had a conversation with somebody in Twitter DMs the other day. His name's Brian. I think it was Brian. I don't want to misquote what his name is. Let me double check. Yeah, it was Brian, a guy named Brian. And he was like, you get so defensive when people disagree with you. And it's not that I get defensive. Maybe it probably definitely does come off that way. And I think everybody to a degree gets defensive when somebody says they're wrong, but it's more so like if I'm wrong and you're going to convince me that I'm wrong, like the reason I think a certain way about something typically is because I spent time looking into it, or You know, I have my reasons to think the way I do. And so if I'm going to switch from that perspective, something that I already carefully came to an understanding of, like, this is why I believe that thing, like, you're going to have to do some work to convince me. So I'm going to push back on you to get you to change my mind. And so it can come off as defensive, but that's the approach I like to use with everything. Like the Pence thing is a great example of that, because you guys all may be right about Pence and be completely justified in why you feel the way you do about Pence, but nobody has yet shown me anything with like proof to change my mind yet. It's like, why would I change my mind from something just because you say it often and loudly and disagree with me more? Like, just because more people disagree with me about a certain thing, and this is something I talked about the other day on the show, that guy who left me a comment, like, so many people are disagreeing with you now, you might need to do some soul searching. The number of people that disagree with you about a topic does not mean you're wrong. And that's been proven over and over and over again. Eldani says, none of us know the truth, only God. That's another great point too. Last night in the Power Hour, we were talking about the whole, was it the Smith-Mundt Act, and, you know, these Jimmy Kimmel getting fired, like these groups need to be held responsible when they don't tell us the truth. And I just think it's a slippery slope, because it's not up to them to tell us the truth. Like, if they're going to lie to us, they always have, they always will. You can't have like a single entity at the top that is like dictating what truth is, because to a lot of degrees it's subjective. Everybody has their motives for why they say certain things. Even the good guys that we think are the good guys lie to us all the time, even if they're for benevolent reasons. Like, there is no supreme authority on truth except God himself. So how can you put people in charge of that? It's really up to us to be the ones to seek out what the truth is to the best of our ability, or to the closest to the truth as we can get. There are some things we can never get the actual truth on. But anyway, sorry. Just Coke says, if you change your opinion because someone wants you to, then that's sad. Yeah. This last week has been challenging. I'm not going to lie. And it's not because, you know, I've never been afraid to speak my mind on things. And for the first time this week, I was like, man, I still ended up saying everything I wanted to say about all the things, but it was definitely the first time when I've even been like, man, my thoughts on this, I feel uncomfortable about them. And it wasn't because I wasn't confident in my thought process or thinking, but it's like, I knew and I could tell that everybody in the movement is going to be like, you can't say that because Erica Kirk just lost her husband, and that is not a nice thing to say to somebody who just lost their husband. Like, she's a grieving spouse. Like, it's too insensitive, or, you know, social consensus says you cannot do those things. And I don't like it was an uncomfortable feeling like I had to operate a certain way because people would find me insensitive. And that's no way for anybody to operate. You know what I mean? So, RT Joan, everyone has free speech and consequences are just as free. That's another great point. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that the DEFCON 0 broke it all down. Like, they had a good episode. And so, yeah, Rebel Nader, not everyone. And that's kind of the point we took on Saturday's DPH, is we felt like we need to be the ones to give people the social permission to feel okay to, like, you don't have to disagree. You don't have to. Or you don't have to agree. You can disagree. Like, that's okay. Anyway, let's I spent way too much time on my soapbox there. I need to see what's going on in the headlines. Yesterday, the Fed raised or lowered the rate finally, which is great news. Ooh, this is a new story. FCC Chair Carr says we're not done yet after Jimmy Kimmel's suspension by ABC. Let's take a listen to this.
What you doing, Zach? My T-Mobile home internet is so good. I wish I could tell the whole world.
Zach, go right ahead.
Somebody actually use T-Mobile? I got Verizon. Skeptical John Rant goes on for 30 minutes. I never plan out my rants, and I never know where they're going to go. Yesterday in the hospital, here with my girlfriend, we were been watching The Office, and the episode that came on was the one where he gets called in, and his boss is like, "What are you guys doing right?" And then he starts talking about, like, never, for any reason ever, let anybody ever. And he goes in this long rant, and then it cuts away to sometimes I start a sentence and don't even know where it's going. And I love that. It's so funny. But that's how I do my rants. Like something just sparks in my head and I just start talking, and sometimes I lose my train of thought. Sometimes I have no idea where it's going to end up. And it goes completely unplanned and unscripted through the whole thing. Anyway, okay, let's watch this clip here.
These shows do lose money. We just did a quick look. I mean, the show is supposed to be profitable, Chairman. Not necessarily on advertising revenue, as you note, given ratings, but affiliate revenue, carriage deals, YouTube viewership apparently quite high. Again, I guess I just push back on the idea that these companies are keeping these shows on the air to score political points somehow, as opposed to because they think they actually make them money.
Yeah, look, we know for sure with more data coming out on Colbert that they were losing money. Happy to take a look more at Kimmel. Obviously, the ratings are what they are. They've been going through the floor. But again, this is a decision for local broadcast TV stations to make. Right. Are they going to lose their own advertisers because people don't want to be associated with that Kimmel programming? Again, we're talking about varied parts of the country with different values. And I'm pleased that Nexstar and Sinclair are looking to their viewers and saying, our viewers don't want this, and so we're not going to run it anymore. So even if it is profitable, if the viewers don't want it, that's the ultimate judgment there.
And again, I had asked earlier about Fallon and Seth Meyers, but is the president's view that they should also be taken off the air, shared by the FCC?
Well, I don't speak for the president, so obviously, he speaks for himself on that. Our goal and our obligation here is to make sure that broadcasters are serving the public interest. And if there's local TV stations that don't think that running that programming does it, then they have every right under the law in their contracts to preempt it. And we'll see how this plays out. But I do think that, again, we are in the midst of a massive shift in dynamics in the media ecosystem for lots of reasons. Again, including the permission structure that President Trump's election has provided. And I would simply say we're not done yet with seeing the consequences of that shift.
Well, what does that mean when you say you're not done yet then? I mean, will you only be pleased when none of these comedians have a show on broadcast television?
No, again, it's not about any particular show or any particular person. It's just we're in the midst of a very disruptive moment right now. And I just frankly expect that we're going to continue to see changes in the media ecosystem.
One of the things that I think people are missing here, and I think we tried to touch on it a little bit last night, is the public broadcast, like the license that, the FCC oversees. It's different than like your regular cable news, I believe. My understanding of it anyway. So there's a difference in why the FCC approaches this. But as I said last night, like, I don't care that Kimmel got fired. And people are making the point that, it's I think it was Patrick Kekistan in the chat, actually. Good to see you, man. It's Kimmel today. It's Rumble tomorrow. And that is a concern, like slippery slope. And the tit for tit going back and forth, like, okay, well, we get to cancel these people because they canceled us first. And then when they somehow come around back into power, if we don't fix our elections, they're going to come back and cancel us and say it's justified. It's just going to go back and forth. We're going to be stuck in that little loop forever. I mean, a lot of things are going to change along the way. This is an interesting, I wish the FCC would focus more on the internet side of things and the streaming side of things, because that's where I see more of a concern. There's obviously likely more money in the cable broadcast, but I do think it's a dying form of content long term. With everything being on everybody's phone and streaming on demand and all these things, I wonder how long you even have like these licensed public networks like this. What if those eventually just all go away? Because there really is only a small group of people that can even get those licenses. And that's not a level playing field, which is what I'm most advocating for. It shouldn't be, these people have to tell the truth, which they're never going to do anyway. But because they're on this network, and then it's who's the purveyor of truth, whatever, it should be like, give people access to more information, more options. There needs to be more options available to people than just these 4 major networks that are licensed or whatever it is. And if I'm misquoting all this stuff, like, I don't care, but you guys get the idea. There needs to be more information available to people, especially when they have the phone at their fingertips. The censorship is what really needs to stop. These algorithms, the app stores, the big tech. We need the Section 230 to be relooked at, and maybe an internet bill of rights at some point. Like, those are the issues I wish they tackle, and they've talked about tackling it for a long time. If you go back to 2020, there's actually a really good interview between Carr and Charlie Kirk, of all people, where he talks about this stuff. We haven't seen any actual movement on it. The cancel culture and censorship isn't the problem. It's the artificially suppressing certain people saying certain things. You got to get rid of the algorithms. Let's see. Okay, Fed cuts the rates for the first time in 9 months. We kind of knew this was coming. I think it would have been a hilarious rug pull if they didn't actually cut the rates, but they did. Federal Reserve Wednesday cut interest rates by a quarter point, signaling further reductions at its remaining 2 meetings this year after President Trump continued urging the central bank to loosen monetary policy. He has repeatedly criticized the Fed for keeping rates too high, arguing that lower borrowing rates or costs would boost investment, jobs, and consumer spending. The decision follows weeks of public statements from the White House, which the president emphasized that the Fed must act to prevent economic slowdown. And it is rumored, at least it was told to me last night, that it was Stephen Moran, the guy who authored the Mar-a-Lago Accords, the most recent appointee to the board. He was the only one that dissented because he thought they should have lowered them even further, like 50 basis points or more. A couple news stories that just came in before or after I went live. So we got this. Trump's Golden Dome missile shield reaches key milestone with Pentagon blueprint. That is interesting. I should have General Kloss back on to talk about this. Space Force General Michael Gutlein, the 4-star officer leading President Trump's Golden Dome air and space missile defense project, has finalized the blueprint for the $175 billion program. He said in July he had 60 days to produce the objective architecture, delivered on schedule, with officials noting September 17th marked both the deadline and the formal establishment of the Office of the Golden Dome. He also briefed Congress this week, the system's goals and timeline. Yeah, I think most of this is going to be stuff from space. But the Golden Dome aims to expand U.S. defenses against ballistic, hypersonic, and advanced cruise missiles through a 4-layer system, 1 satellite-based and 3 land-based, with 11 short-range missile batteries positioned across the continental U.S. It's inspired by Israel's Iron Dome, but on a far larger scale. Hopefully it works against go-karts, flying go-karts. Trump and Starmer announced $350 billion tech prosperity deal, which they had hinted at just the other day. The plan is expected to create 15,000 jobs in the UK and fund the development of 12 advanced nuclear reactors to meet growing tech energy demands. Trump said the deal would also generate $50 billion in economic value for the U.S., creating up to 2,500 American jobs, empowering 1.5 million homes. Looks like they got NVIDIA, OpenAI, Google, and Salesforce. It's going to be life-changing for Britain, he says. Also, I saw NVIDIA, the chip maker, the chips company, they invested like 5% or something in Intel, which shot the stock right up. Thought that was an interesting purchase because the United States owns, I think they're the largest shareholder in Intel at this moment because of what they did a couple months ago or a month ago. So anyway, that's big news. Did we talk about this yesterday? Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signing the Mutual Defense Pact. Both countries are broadening their defense cooperation, that any aggression against one nation would be treated as an attack on both. Didn't Pakistan and, was it India, almost go to war recently? If I'm wrong on the chat, can you let me know? John, honest, this is a good question here. Rise of Tire. John, honest question. Couldn't we also use the same no tit-for-tat argument? So say Trump shouldn't respond to our enemies with lawfare. Where do we draw the line if they're going to attack, censor us anyway? And this is the thing. And somebody posted this in response to one of my posts on social media, like, man, this last week, it seems like you don't want accountability or justice or anything like that. Like, don't you want to see these crimes be punished? And yeah, that's a different situation. Actual crimes that are committed need to be punished. And this is the biggest difference with what Trump is doing and pursuing versus what they were pursuing. It's the whole game theory where truth is the infinite player on the game board. When when they went after Trump, they were fabricating crimes, and they were like, fabricating information in line and doing all sorts of nefarious things that were crimes themselves to try to essentially find the crime. Like they would go looking for the crime and there was never anything there. And a majority of what they were doing also was like the narrative warfare aspect of it to delegitimize him. I think they were hoping that they could pull off enough of like the narrative warfare prior to the 2016 election where he wouldn't have been electable and they could have stole the election, whatever. I don't think they had the election fraud infrastructure quite as cemented in place as they did in 2018 and 2020. But I think their hope was to just delegitimize him enough and make him unelectable enough that Hillary won the election in 2016. And then all the crimes they committed after the fact were to basically cover up what they did the first time around, the very first thing with the Russiagate, Russia collusion hoax and their involvement in that. Like those are actual crimes. Actual crimes need to be punished and there needs to be accountability for that stuff. So that I don't see that as tit for tat, because what they did with Trump the entire time in the lawfare, that was all bogus. There were no actual crimes there. That was, again, even the stuff that happened while Biden was in office was to, again, delegitimize him to make him unelectable so that he couldn't run or win again in 2024. And a lot of Con Inc. even went with that rhetoric. It's like, man, look at all this lawfare against him. Is he really going to win in the general election against a Biden or a Harris? We need to go with Ron DeSantis instead. He's much more electable than Trump. And he's basically the same guy, runs on the same issues. That was the talking points they were trying to push. So it's completely different. Crimes need to be punished. But like cancel culture because somebody says something we find detestable is different. And the censorship stuff, I would argue there's crimes there too. Like it should be a crime for one person or like one network to be censored and not allowed to participate in the public discourse at the same level as everybody else, because we won't say the things that they want us to be saying. We say the things that go against the regime narratives. I find that to be a crime. If they dig into it and ever prove it that it happens that way, maybe they will pursue it as a crime. But yeah, I see those are two different discussions. There's the social consequences thing, which I totally understand, even though I choose not to participate in it because I don't know. I personally don't find it to be moral. Like, I don't think it's a moral thing of me to reach out to an employer of somebody I've never met before, don't even know who it is. I just saw something they said online and try to do something that is going to negatively impact that person's life when it didn't necessarily affect me. Like somebody celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, as detestable as that is and awful as that is, that didn't affect me on a personal level. That, like, if it's in your school system, yeah, that's different. Like somebody across the country, like just trying to ruin that person's life because of something they said, that's the more so of the behavior that I don't like, the tit for tat stuff, slippery slope. And even the discussions about it, that's exactly what the enemy wants us to be doing. They want us to be fighting with each other and not fighting against them. There's that great meme where that has the guy like standing outside it looks like a fish tank, but then has like a Republican and a Democrat in there, and they're like fighting each other, and the guy's just standing there like watching them do it. That's what they got us doing right now, for the most part. And it sucks. Let's see what else I got. I actually might not have all that much. The House did reject a bid to censure Rep. Ilhan Omar over Charlie Kirk comments. I think there were 4 Republicans that voted to drop the consideration. I wonder who it was. Corey Mills. This is a First Amendment issue. We may not like or agree with what someone says, but that does not mean we should deny their First Amendment right. It's kind of my point on it. Trump says he's trying to get back to that Afghan air base. He's trying to get it back. The one that Biden lost. Wouldn't be surprised if he works out a deal to get it back too. He will. And gosh, there's another story I want to discuss. I don't have it pulled up. I don't remember what it is. Shoot. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. See if anything sparks my memory. Otherwise, we're gonna get you guys out of here. I'm not seeing anything. So, it was something to do with the shutdown. The shutdown is coming up, the end of the fiscal year, and I don't think we've seen any progress to this point in funding the government. I hope it shuts down. But all right, guys, let me check the Badlands Boost website. Don't forget, we have tickets on sale for our Cocoa Beach GART. If you haven't yet, I'd encourage you to get those tickets. It's filling up and filling up pretty quickly, and it's going to be a big one. We do have a limited capacity at this one, more so than we do at the last few conferences. So if you plan on coming, I'd encourage you to heavily consider getting on that. Local meetups also at the bottom, lots of them. Let's check out the boosts, see if we got any over there. Power hour. Okay, nothing new. Okay, and then got some rants here. Looks like Dang Ol Aggie is now a monthly supporter. Thank you. Fix Baynet. John, I wrote a post in Deadwood Telegram chat concerning Bowyer. If you want to take a look, it's worth checking out this angle, I feel. I will look at that after the show. Thank you for the rant, though. Harry Vetch, stay frosty. Always protect yourself, your family, and your community. If everyone does that, then we are all good. I agree. Then Harry Vetch again, there's a reason our founders went with a jury of 12 peers. It's another good one. But yeah, guys, that's all I got. So with that, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. I'll be back again tomorrow right here on the Daily Herald. I don't got any other shows tonight. So you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. Keep your head in a swivel. Avoid the psyops if at all possible. And yeah, we'll see you next time. We'll see you.
Read all about it. 2, 3. Let's get started.
Oh, that's real good.
Why they stopping me? Stopping me.